Good evening, everybody. Well, I have a quick story to tell you about, and then I want to know, do you agree or disagree with the decision of Timothy Bowers that he made to end his own life? Timothy Bowers was 32 years old. He was a newlywed, had a baby on the way, from what I understood, had a business. And but he was in a hunting accident on Saturday. He fell 16 feet from a one of those things, that the hunters sit up in the trees with. He fell out of that, fell 16 feet to the ground, and it caused him to be paralyzed, with spinal injuries, and caused him to be put on life support. Now, that happened on Saturday, and on Sunday, he chose to remove himself from life support and died later that day. Some people say he was being very selfish because he had a new wife. He had a baby on the way. He had everything to live for. And consider him to be selfish on this part. You could look at it that way, or you could look at it in the way of, well, maybe he didn't want to burden his wife, with him being on being paralyzed. Now, granted, he might have been able to wait a little while to see what all could be done for him as far as that goes, but they probably more or less told him he would be paralyzed regardless. And I'm imagining when you're on life support, it's either you're going to stay on it until you start getting better, which may never happen, or you'll just stay on it until you die. I'm not sure if he chose to remove himself from life support after the accident, or maybe he had said, to the effect of, like, maybe a living will, like if something ever happens and I'm on life support, I don't want to be on life support, take me off life support. That may be how it happened, I don't know. But from what I understand, he decided to remove himself from life support, and he died later that day. I would imagine it would be something like a living will. I don't imagine that he's laying there in bed and say, no, take me off this life support. He probably wasn't conscious. I don't know. I guess we'll hear more about this as it goes. But, he, if he was aware of what he was doing and decided to take himself off of life support, then rather than people to consider him selfish, I find that he was looking out for the best interest of his wife. Sure, the baby would not have the father alive, but he was probably thinking, what could he do for the child? He would be paralyzed. The wife would have to take care of the baby and take care of him. This way, if he was to go on, because his quality of life would be gone in his eyes, then she was young and she could meet somebody else, and then she could meet somebody that could live a normal life with her and give the baby a father. So, there's two ways to look at it. If you think he was selfish, or if this was a generous thing to do. His name was Timothy Bowers. He was only 32 years old, so he was very, very young. Somebody had said that the last thing he ever wanted was to be in a wheelchair. That's kind of funny, how do you bring these things up? Had he talked about it before? Did he have a premonition? Was he able to talk after the accident? This says the last thing he wanted was to be in a wheelchair, and it said he would never be able to give hugs, to hold his baby. We made sure he knew that so he could make a decision. Even if he decided the other thing, the quality of life would have been very poor. His life expectancy would be very low. So his life expectancy was low anyway. His quality of life would have been extremely poor. Reminds me of, I can't think of his name right now. Superman, you know who I'm talking about. Christopher Reeves. When he had his accident, and I remember that very clearly, and he had his accident because he wanted to do his own stunt in a movie. Rather than have a stunt man, he chose to do his own stunt, and then ended up being paralyzed from the neck down because of that stunt. And, sometimes I wonder, he was asked, after that, if he had any regrets of doing his own stunt, and he said no. But you do. You have to regret it. You have to say, God, if I had only done what they asked me to do and had a stuntman, I would not be in this position. But I can't see being paralyzed. I can't see it, I think my quality of life would just be gone. And I would probably feel the same way that Timothy felt. I would probably just soon go on, versus having somebody to change you and feed you. And, that's okay, but you would be more than happy to do it for your loved ones, I'm sure. But I would not want to put myself on somebody like that. I've always been the one to say I would rather have quality of life versus quantity of life. So, I would rather my life be filled with happiness. I'd rather be happy. I would like to be able to do for myself and to do things and maybe die at a younger age versus living old and not be able to do anything for myself. I work in a nursing home, and the majority of the people, are just regular old people. But some you have in there that can't do anything for themselves. They can't function. They're not in their right mind. And they're just there. Families forget about them. They don't have visitors, that sort of thing. I don't want to ever be in that position. I don't want that to happen to me. To me, that is no quality of life. Then you have some people that we've seen go through there that's 100 years old, 102 years old. And people say, well, they're blessed. I don't find that a blessing. To be blessed to be 102 years old would be like Betty White. Betty White's in her 90s, and she's still able to act. She still lives on her own. She still does for herself. That's blessed. But to be over 100 years old and be put away in a little room in a nursing home, you don't have your home, your surroundings anymore, your family barely comes by, that's not blessed. To me, it's not. You may feel different. So how do you feel about Timothy? Do you think that he was selfish in deciding to end his own life? Or do you think he did the right thing for his wife and for his unborn child? And until next time, bye-bye.